The work of teaching is simultaneously mental and social. It is also physical, emotional, practical, behavioral, political, experiential, historical, cultural, spiritual, and personal. In short, teaching is very complex, influenced not only by these 12 dimensions and perhaps others, but also requiring their contingent orchestration in support of students' learning. When language teaching is in focus, the complexity is even greater, shaped by teachers' views of the nature of the language, of language teaching and learning in general, and by their knowledge of the particular socio-cultural setting in which the teaching and learning takes place, as stated by Adamson 2004. What is language arts teaching? Language arts is a term typically used by educators to describe the curriculum area that includes 4 modes of language: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Language art teaching constitutes a particular important area in teachers' education, since listening, speaking, reading, and writing permeate the curriculum. They are essential to learning and to the demonstration of learning in every content area. Teachers are charged with guiding students towards proficiency in these 4 language modes, which can be compared and contrasted in several ways. But before we move forward, we can say that English language teaching terminology can be sometimes confusing. Therefore, it is important for us teachers and future educators to be informed about exactly the differences between approach, method, procedure, and technique on language arts teaching. First, what is approach? According to Richards and Rogers, 1986, an approach refers to the general assumptions about what language is and about how learning a language occurs. It represents the sum of our philosophy about both the theory of language and the theory of learning. In other words, an approach to language teaching describes the nature of language, how knowledge of a language is required, and the conditions that promote language acquisition. How about method? A method is a practical implementation of an approach. A theory is put into practice at the level of a method. It includes decisions about the particular skills to be taught, the roles of the teacher and the learner in language teaching and learning, the appropriate procedures and techniques, the content to be taught, and the order in which the content will be presented. Next is the procedure. Jeremy Harmer 2001 describes procedure as an ordered set of techniques. They are the step-by-step measures to execute a method. A common procedure in the grammar translation method, for example, is to start by explaining the grammar rules and exemplifying these rules through sentences that the student then had to translate into their mother tongue. Also, according to him, a procedure is smaller than a method and larger than a technique. Lastly, the technique. Implementing a procedure necessitates certain practices and behaviors that operate in teaching a language according to a particular method. These practices and behaviors are the techniques that every procedure relies on. Techniques, in this sense, are part and parcel of procedures. They are the actual moment-to-moment classroom steps that lead to a specified outcome. Every procedure is realized through a series of techniques. They could take the form of an exercise or just any activity that you have to do to complete a task.
There are approaches in teaching language art. The first is communicative approach. It is also known as communicative language teaching. This is a teaching approach that highlights the importance of real communication for learning to take place. It is based on the idea that learning language successfully comes through having to communicate real meaning. When learners are involved in real communication, their natural strategies for language acquisition will be used. One of the examples of this approach is asking the learners about their personal information such as what are their favorite food, what makes them happy, what are the memorable moments of their life, and such. Second is scaffolding approach. It is an approach in which teachers offer a particular kind of support to students as they learn and develop new skills by building on skills that they already have. It helps a child to move from simple language to more complicated language. Teachers give support by talking to students in different ways. As the child learns the new skill, the teacher can reduce the amount of support they give. Third is cooperative learning. It is also an approach in sharing the idea that students work together to learn and are responsible for their teammates' learning as well as their own. It emphasizes the use of team goals and team success, which can be achieved only if all members of the team learns the objectives being taught in the class.
According to the situational approach, all sentences and words must originate from a real or imagined real situation in order to ensure that the language being taught is a realistic. As a result, the context in which words are used to determine their meaning. The students are aware of the meaning of the term blackboard, not because they have looked it up in a dictionary, but rather because they have encountered the situation in which they have used the term. By being told these things like, take a look at the chalkboard, get rid of the chalkboard, write on the board. The association that the word blackboard has with the actions of looking at it, cleaning at it, or writing on it is emphasized in this example. Even if there isn't much space in the classroom, the teacher should use a scenario from outside the classroom to demonstrate their creativity. The notional-functional approach in ESL is a way of structuring a syllabus around notions, real-life situations in which people communicate, which are further broken down into functions, specific aims of communication. Do you think functional-notional approach is effective to teach language arts? In teaching language, the functional-notional approach to language helps the teacher to first of all identify the needs of the learner and analyze the needs in order to draw the syllabus. In teaching the functional notional approach to language helps the teacher to be able to teach purposes of speech. For example, a lesson might be about how to buy something at a shop, in which case its notion is shopping and one of its function might be asking prices. Functions often lend themselves naturally to specific grammatical patterns or common expressions. Multi-skills is a very effective strategy that combats early sports specialization and equips participants with a variety of abilities that can increase participation. The 5 main categories of multi-skills are the social, personal, cognitive, creative, and physical. One of the activities that can improve students' multi-skills is tasking them to dance. The creativity with this activity will make kids will undoubtedly want to participate because it is enjoyable. Try out this fantastic dance for a dance instruction, which includes complete lesson packs and additional home learning materials. They are ideal for encouraging movement in your classroom because they have a task that is fun and engaging.
Content-based instruction is a strong version of the communicative approach, goes beyond giving students opportunities to practice communication. The strong version asserts that language is acquired through communication. Content-based instruction, with all its many phases, offers teachers a way of addressing issues of language and content learning and allows students to make ongoing progress in work. This can provide an efficient manner of learning, ensuring that students are not left behind while learning language or while learning content. For this reason, CBI can also be an effective way for students to learn language in the language class, using themes that students find of interest. Such themes provide sustained motivation beyond intermediate levels of proficiency and prepare students if they choose for the transition to content area classes in school, college, or university. Task-based language teaching is another example of this strong version of the communicative approach where language is acquired through use. In other words, students acquire the language they need when they need it in order to accomplish the task that has been set before them. Task-based instruction can help to encourage students to use the target language actively and meaningfully. The participatory approach is another example of a strong version of the communicative approach. An analytic syllabus is adopted, and the use of meaningful language predominates over learning linguistic items one by one. In this approach, it means that the person in charge of solving a problem or designing an innovation involves people who are directly concerned by the result of his or her work.
The grammar translation method is a method of teaching foreign languages derived from the classical method of teaching Greek and Latin. In grammar translation classes, students learn grammatical rules and then apply those rules by translating sentences between the target language and the native language. Advanced students may be required to translate full text word for word. The method has two main goals: to enable students to read and translate literature written in the target language and to further student general intellectual development. During the 19th century, the direct method or natural method was developed as an antithesis to the popular grammar translation method, which many believe was failing in the goal of effective communication in a second language. The direct method focuses on full immersion in the classroom environment where not one word of the student's native language is spoken. The focus is not on grammar but instead on learning through listening and speaking. When using the natural approach, we don't focus on the rules, we allow for mistakes, and we aim for excellent and oral communication with our target words and language. The audiolingual approach to language teaching has a lot of similarities with the direct method. Both were considered as a reaction against the shortcomings of the grammar translation method. Both reject the use of the mother tongue and both stress the speaking and listening competences preceded reading and writing competences. But there are also some differences. The direct method highlighted the teaching of vocabulary, while the audiolingual approach focused on grammar drills. The objective of the audiolingual method is accurate pronunciation and grammar, the ability to respond quickly and accurately in speech, situation knowledge of sufficient vocabulary to use with grammar patterns.
Total physical response is an approach to language teaching where gestures, actions, and movements play a vital role in language acquisition. Remember, when you were a kid and adults will tell you to do all kinds of things like catch the ball, pick up your doll, or open your mouth, well, TPR is going back to those good old days. TPR believes that when your students see movement and when they themselves move, their brains create more neural connections that make for more efficient language acquisition. That's why when you teach TPR, you will be flailing your hands a lot, widening your eyes, and moving your body. This is not so you can catch up on your exercise. It's called community language learning because the class learns together as one unit, not listening to the same lecture but interacting in the target language. The teacher's role is that of a counselor, a guide, and encourager. The silent way. Imagine a teacher who talks as little as possible. You better believe it's more than a fantasy. Proponents of this alternative approach believe that teaching too much can sometimes get in the way of learning. It's argued that students learn best when they discover rather than simply repeat what the teacher said. The silent way uses silence as a teaching tool. Your students might feel you are giving them the silent treatment. If you don't keep things friendly and explain the process to them, you are really encouraging them to do the talking themselves. You are encouraging learners to be independent, to discover and figure out the language for themselves. Learning the target language is therefore seen as a creative, problem-solving process, an engaging cognitive challenge. Language Experience Method. It is a whole language approach that promotes reading and writing through the use of personal experiences and oral language. It can be used in the tutorial or classroom settings with homogeneous or heterogeneous groups of learners. It effectively helps develop learners' print awareness since the learners see the direct connections between image and words. It effectively connects known vocabulary and new vocabulary with print words, since the experience and image correlate with words in the written caption.
In a nutshell, an approach informs methods with both the theory of language and the theory of learning. Methods are actual implementations of approaches. They are theories put into practice. Procedures, in turn, are informed by methods. They are ordered step-by-step events that have specified outcomes. Procedures rely on techniques to achieve desired results. Moreover, developing strategies for the language arts classroom is important if all learners are to benefit from the curriculum. Thus, the significance of approaches and methods of teaching language arts has a major impact, and it is advantageous for instructors to have information about the numerous diverse language learning techniques and strategies, so they can be adaptable in their instruction methods and adjust when required. Instructing an outside dialect can be challenging, but fulfilling work that opens up totally modern ways of communications to students. Keep on reading for all the points of interest you wish to know about the most well-known foreign dialect instructional strategies. Also, providing strategies for students will help engage them in the reading of the text and develop their comprehension skills. As what Samuel Taylor Coleridge said, language is the armory of the human mind, and at once contains the trophies of its past and the weapons of its future contest. Building language arts abilities are crucial for students. Bringing language arts thoughts together for our learners can move forward and practice their aptitudes in comprehension, reading, vocabulary, spelling, and content composing. Let's have fun teaching and learning language arts with different methods and approaches for our future.